never thought I'd be afraid of paper. But by the end of last semester, I couldn't look at a sticky note without my hands shaking. It started in October, right after midterms. I'd moved into a studio apartment off campus to escape dorm. Drama, cheap rent, thin walls, and a view of a parking lot. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, or so I thought. The first note showed up on a Thursday. I'd just gotten back from my morning coffee run, juggling my keys and a scalding latte, when I saw it, a square of pale blue stationery on the floor. The handwriting was neat, almost feminine. "Your laugh is my favorite sound." I laughed out loud, not in a cute way, more of a snort. I figured it was a prank from my friend Liam, who lived downstairs and knew I hated rom-com cliches. I crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash. But then another appeared, and another. "Coffee at 8 a.m. sharp. You always forget." True. I'd missed 3 morning classes that month. "The way you bite your pen when you're stressed, it's endearing." Okay, creepy. I didn't own a pen. I typed everything. I started triple-checking the deadbolt, even bought a $30 security camera on Amazon, pointed it at the door. For a week, nothing happened. Then, on a rainy Tuesday, I came home to a note taped to my fridge. "Don't wear the red sweater. I don't like when others look at you." My stomach dropped. The red sweater was stuffed in the back of my closet, a gift from my ex I'd never worn. I pulled it out, holding it like it was radioactive. That's when I noticed the camera on my laptop. The little green light wasn't on, but I opened the files anyway. There was a folder labeled Study Buddy. Inside, hundreds of screenshots. Me eating ramen at 1 a.m. Me half asleep on the couch. Me changing shirts. The timestamps spanned weeks. I called the police, but they shrugged. "Change your passwords," the officer said. "Maybe cover your webcam." I did. I taped a post-it over the lens, but the notes kept coming. "You shouldn't have called them. I'm closer than you think." I stopped sleeping. Started checking the closet every night, jabbing a baseball bat into the shadows. My friends thought I was paranoid. "It's just some loser with a crush," Liam said. But then the Polaroids started. The first one was in my mailbox. Me, standing, at my kitchen sink, wearing the t-shirt I'd slept in. The timestamp, 3:02 a.m. I hadn't been in the kitchen that night. I'd been at Liam's, watching horror movies. When I showed him, his face went pale. "Dude, this isn't funny." The final note came on December 1st. I'd just stepped out of the shower, steam fogging the mirror, when I saw it. A single sheet of paper stuck to the glass. "Meet me tonight, or I'll come in." I didn't pack. Didn't even grab my phone. I sprinted to Liam's apartment in socks, my hair dripping. He let me crash on his couch, but I barely slept. Every creak sounded like footsteps. Every car passing felt like a threat. The next morning, my landlord called. "Your door was open," he said. "Everything okay?" The apartment looked normal. Couch cushions in place, dishes still in the sink. Then I saw it, a Polaroid pinned to the wall above my bed. Me curled on Liam's couch, mouth open mid-snore. The timestamp, 4:16 a.m. The police found him 2 days later, a guy named Ethan, who dropped out after harassing a professor. He'd been living in the crawl space above my closet, unscrewing the vent to watch me. They found empty chip bags, a jug of water, and a nest of blankets still warm from his body heat. I moved out that weekend. The landlord refunded my deposit, no questions asked. But here's the thing they never explained. How did he get into my laptop? The cops said he used spyware, but I'd never clicked a suspicious link. Never even logged into public Wi-Fi. And why me? Ethan didn't answer in court, just stared at me with hollow eyes, like I was the one who'd wronged him. They sentenced him to probation, therapy, a restraining order. I wish I could say that's the end. But last week, I got an email from an anonymous account. No message, just an attachment, a photo of my new apartment building. The timestamp was from yesterday. I don't wear red anymore. I don't laugh too loud. And every night before I go to bed, I check the crawl space, just in case. I never imagined that moving in with a pre-med senior would plunge my life into such a disturbing nightmare. I was a transfer student seeking a fresh start, excited to live independently in a modest off-campus apartment. When I met Clara on my first day, she was polite yet distant, always disappearing for long stretches with vague explanations about lab work. Her side of the apartment was lined with a collection of anatomy textbooks and journals that hinted at a meticulous obsession with the human body. At first, her behavior seemed like nothing more than the quirks of an overachiever, but soon unsettling. Details began to surface. It started subtly. One evening while preparing dinner, I detected a sharp chemical odor in the kitchen, a scent I couldn't attribute to any cleaning product or meal ingredient. At the same time, I noticed small red stains on the hem of Clara's lab coat which hung neatly in the closet. The sight made my skin crawl, but I dismissed it as an overreaction fueled by nerves. I told myself that living with someone so absorbed in their studies might naturally lead to such oddities. Days later, odd sounds began to punctuate the quiet of our apartment. I would hear soft, unexplained noises in the dead of night, like the faint scraping of metal against wood or a muffled thump coming from the hallway. I attributed these to the building's settling, yet each occurrence left me with a lingering sense of dread. Then, one evening, when I needed to borrow Clara's scissors to open a package, I reached for them in the living room drawer and froze. The metal hinges were smeared with what appeared to be dried blood. My hand trembled as I pulled the scissors free, the metallic tang mingling with that persistent chemical odor. Half-jokingly, I asked Clara if she was a serial killer, expecting a laugh or a light-hearted retort. Instead, she fixed me with a blank stare and, in a monotone that chilled me to the bone, simply said, "Don't go into the basement." The warning, delivered without any hint of humor, turned my mild curiosity into a deep-seated fear. I couldn't help but wonder what secrets lay hidden beneath our apartment, especially given the strange environment Clara cultivated. That night, unable to shake the feeling that I was missing a crucial piece of the puzzle, I gathered my courage and decided to explore the basement. With a flashlight in hand and my heart pounding in my ears, I crept down the narrow, creaking stairs. The basement was colder than I expected, the air thick with the chemical smell that had haunted the kitchen. Every step echoed ominously, as if I were intruding on a forbidden realm. As I reached the bottom, my flashlight beam caught sight of an old table covered with a makeshift surgical tray. It was a sight so out of place that I stood frozen for several minutes. On the table lay several vials filled with what I assumed were sedatives, and in the corner sat a locked freezer that exuded a foreboding presence. My pulse quickened as I approached the freezer, curiosity battling with an instinctual urge to flee. After fumbling with a set of keys I found nearby, I managed to unlock it. Inside, I was met with a horrifying tableau, a jumble of animal organs, and, most disturbingly, a human finger adorned with a class ring. The realization that this was not a macabre accident, but the product of deliberate, unethical experimentation sent a jolt of terror through me. I scrambled back up the stairs, my mind reeling with questions and a growing dread that something unspeakable had been happening right under my nose. When I returned to the apartment the next morning, Clara was nowhere to be found. Panic surged as I contacted the police and recounted every detail of my discovery. Their investigation revealed a shocking truth. Clara had been expelled months earlier for conducting unethical experiments in secret, experiments that blurred the line between scientific inquiry and something far more sinister. Even more chilling was the confirmation that the human finger belonged to a janitor who had mysteriously vanished from our building. I moved out immediately, unable to reconcile the ordinary life I once knew with the ghastly secrets I had uncovered. Even now, I live in a new place, yet every creak in the night and every unexpected shadow reminds me of that basement, that locked freezer, and the unexplainable horror of Clara's experiments. The rational part of me insists that it was a series of coincidences, a twisted confluence of misfortune and hidden obsession, but the lingering feeling of dread tells a different story. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I wonder if the true horror was not the experiments themselves, but the betrayal of trust from someone I thought I knew. The memory of that human finger, forever marked by a class ring, remains an indelible scar on my mind a reminder that the most unsettling terrors often hide behind the veneer of normalcy. I still sleep with a chair wedged under my doorknob. It's been 2 years now, but I can't shake the habit. Let me tell you why. It all began during my first semester at State U when I finally secured a single dorm room. The room was small and cramped, but it felt like my own little sanctuary. I cherished every detail of it, especially the generic brass key on a red lanyard that I kept on my desk beside my calculus textbook. That key symbolized my independence until the day it mysteriously vanished. At first, I blamed myself. Freshman year was a whirlwind of late-night study sessions and impulsive decisions. I assumed I had misplaced the key, perhaps leaving it in the library, dining hall, or even the shower. When I reported the loss to the resident advisor, he merely rolled his eyes and handed me a spare key saying, "Happens 10 times a week." I tried to laugh it off, but an uneasy feeling settled in my gut. The next morning, I was startled to find the original key sitting neatly on my desk, exactly where I had left it the night before. My skin prickled, and I wondered if I was losing my mind, or if someone was toying with me. That unsettling uncertainty lingered in my mind for days. One night, returning from the library around 1 a.m., I unlocked my door and stepped into my room, only to discover that my key had disappeared. Once again, this time, the door was slightly ajar, just an inch open, as if someone had deliberately left it that way. I distinctly remembered locking it before I left, and my heart sank. I stepped inside cautiously, and at first, everything seemed normal. Then, I detected a faint smell of cigarettes clinging to the sheets, as if someone had been there for hours. Later, in the shower, I found the drain clogged with a clump of coarse black hair, so different from my dishwater blonde locks. The next day, the RA dismissed my concerns with a shrug. "Stress makes people forgetful," he said, handing me another key. "Try a tracking tag next time." His words did nothing to ease my growing anxiety. Soon, the disappearances became even stranger. One afternoon, while napping with my earphones in, I awoke to find my key missing. The door was locked, but my pillowcase smelled faintly of menthol, an odor I couldn't explain. From that day forward, I began leaving the lights on at night, hoping to ward off whatever was lurking in the shadows. Then, on a Tuesday around 3 a.m., I experienced something that still haunts me. I had just fallen asleep with my back to the door when I heard deliberate creaks of floorboards. Unlike the usual groans of an old building, these sounds were measured and slow. I felt a presence near my bed, and the air filled with the smell of sweat and stale smoke. I lay frozen, terrified, until I felt warm breath on my neck. I screamed, and the intruder bolted, crashing into my dresser before flinging open the window and disappearing into the night. Later, security discovered muddy footprints on the roof, traced to a homeless man they had been monitoring for squatting and stealing keys from careless students. The building was rekeyed, and we were given high-tech keycards. The case was closed by the authorities, but the terror lingered. A few days later, while searching for the laundry room, I got lost and stumbled into a maintenance closet. The door was ajar, and the light had long burned out. Using my phone's flashlight, I discovered a dented shoebox on a dusty shelf. Inside, I found several missing lanyards, a discarded psychology textbook, a pair of my underwear, and even my toothbrush, its bristles splayed and stained brown. Overwhelmed, I vomited. When the janitor found me, the police were called again. They informed me that the homeless man was in custody, yet when he was searched, he didn't have my keycard. After finals, I moved out and switched to online classes, unable to endure the terror any longer. But last month, I visited campus to meet a friend, and I witnessed the same homeless man being arrested again for loitering. As our eyes met across the parking lot, he grinned with yellow, menacing teeth and shouted, "You left the window open." To everyone's astonishment, the officers found 7 keycards in his pocket, none of them mine. Now, I check my locks. 5 times on normal days, 6 when it rains. The worst part is what I discovered in that shoebox. A faded Polaroid of me, sound asleep in my dorm bed, wearing red pajamas I never owned. That image haunts me, a silent testament to a mystery that may never be solved. Step into the darkness with cryptic terrors. Smash that subscribe button and hit the bell to unlock new tales of mystery and horror every week. Dare to join us?